Okay, hi, everyone. Calling to order the board in our administrative meeting on June 25th, 2024. The time now is 3 o'clock. We have Commissioner DeGroot and Commissioner Minty in the room. We have Chair Hensley online. Chair Hensley, do you want me to go ahead and run the meeting from the room, or would you like to run it from Zoom? Okay, I'm going to run it from the room. Have you had a chance to look at meeting minutes from last week yet?
I have.
And how'd those look?
Those are great.
Okay, I will mark those as approved. So our first item on the agenda is Klamath County Sheriff, Sheriff Kaver, and Mr. Strip, come on up. And I don't know if I know you, but you're welcome to come up.
Deputy Swan.
KCPOA
Wait a
Randy
minute.
Swan.
You look vaguely familiar.
He's also KCPOA president, so.
Awesome. Welcome. Good to have you.
Commissioners, I'm Sheriff Chris Kaber. I got an easy one for you. Not, maybe. As you know, we've run into, it's been a slow burn, but we're in a position in the Klamath County Jail where we are short-staffed at a significant number. Difficult to fill our posts without massive amounts of overtime. And we are seeking ways to mitigate that one way or the other. The most recent was we've done some rehoming in the jail to allow for a certain group of adults in custody to be in one pod where they can be more easily monitored, freeing up a little bit of pressure on the deputies that are manning the post. I don't know that that will be a long-term solution, but it's at least something for now. In the discussions we've had, not only with the administrative staff, but with the corrections deputies themselves, with the KCPOA, which Deputy Swan is here representing, with one or two of the sergeants in the jail, they came up with an idea that has in concept been floated before, but not been necessary, but now might be really worth considering. So if I can explain that to you, it would go something like this. Corrections deputies have their job description and their massive amounts of work that they do. And a lot of that is, and the deputy shaking his head, he can correct me. He's got permission to correct me if I'm wrong. Massive amounts of things that they do, but some of those things don't necessarily require a sworn deputy to do. A lot of those duties can be done by what we at the jail call clerks. That they help in run master control from time to time. They can help in searching. They can help in all the clerical work, the warrant clearing, the warrant entering, all of those things that happen. Even in the booking process, even booking in a new prisoner, if you will. A lot of that work can be done by a clerk, doesn't necessarily need a sworn deputy to do. So the idea was floated that maybe we don't fill all of these deputy positions that we have open, because we're having a hard time doing that, even though we're interviewing 5 for corrections tomorrow. So we do have some in the pipeline, but our track record is that not all of them will make it through the process. So we may end up with 2 or 3. So instead of filling those last positions, we were wondering if we could somehow convince the commissioners to allow us through the budget process somehow to fill those with clerk positions. We've done a little bit of the numbers check, fully loaded deputy versus a fully loaded clerk, both at step 1 because we're hiring people brand new for either one. And we think it's a viable idea if we can come to some sort of agreement that we can post and hire for clerks and not fill deputy positions until we can come back together and make sure that either the money's there or see which ones fill up first. It's a little bit of an unknown. We can, seems to be hiring clerks is a little bit easier, even though they still complete a background investigation and go through all of that, but they're not gun carrying deputies ever. They do not have to go to the academy. And in a shorter period of time, we can have them up and running and filling those duties that right now are being done by corrections deputies. We have 2 clerks in the jail. There was a time we had 3. We've been living with 2. There's 3 shifts, but we've been living with 2, and they've been helping out tremendously. One of the things that you might see if you actually run the numbers out is it might cost a little bit more. So just for argument, for discussion, if we didn't fill 3 deputies positions, we could hire 4 clerks. The difference is about that. There's a little bit more extra money, but if you think about the fact that the clerks will be alleviating a tremendous amount of overtime that the deputies are now working, it's feasible that in 2 or 3 months, we could have enough clerks hired and filling those positions that would cover whatever difference there was. So we would get 4 employees for 3 if we don't fill those. Of course, I don't want to give up positions. I would rather they maybe stay on the books, and we've done it before where we promise not to fill something until we know the money is there, which may or may never be, but we don't know what the next step is. I've never asked to do anything quite like this before. I don't know what the process would be. I would love to post clerks' positions tomorrow if we somehow got a feel that we could get that done, because the sooner the better. Now, that's just the groundwork. We can answer questions for you, I'm sure, between the 3 of us.
Well, so just a clarifying question before getting into more of the nitty gritty, but you mentioned, we've never really done this before, but there's almost part of my brain that thinks, actually, you select your staffing generally, or a sheriff does. So is it just because we've currently had these listed as deputies? Because I think, like, if you peel back, to the very beginning, you could have said, like, I think clerks go here and deputies go here. And so, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so in the personnel spreadsheet during the budget time, we looked that over at that time, which was really when we were working on that was several months ago. The problem was looming, but we did not take it into factor that it would be accelerated to this point right now. So if what you're saying is if you peeled it all back and I just had a pot of money to spend on personnel at the jail, then maybe I could do whatever I wanted in a sense. I'm not saying that per se. But the way we've always done it before is the commissioners tell the sheriff how many positions you have and what the costs are all figured out. So I'm wanting to stay within that structure. We feel like we should come and talk to you before, and plus HR helps us post jobs. So we want to make sure that it's all on the up and up. The public knows what we're doing. You know what we're doing or trying to do, and get your blessing on it on the front end. And if there's more work to do, we'll work on it, but we would like to do it quickly, please.
Does any other counties do this?
There's a lot of counties, Lieutenant Stripling, jail commander, there's a lot of counties that they have clerks do all the clerical stuff. And then they have what's called an FSO, a facility security officer, that does the master control and stuff like that, to where our deputies do those jobs. So there's a lot of counties throughout the state that divide the duties that way. So the answer is yes. It's usually your smaller counties where you see deputies doing more of the duties that a clerk or an FSO would be doing.
So to put it simply, in a bigger county, people would be more, to use a non-technical term, like specialized in.
Yes.
This is my lane.
Yes.
And that's what you're wanting to move toward, is more like specialization versus having just a more well-rounded corrections team.
Well, in the job description that currently exists for Klamath County clerks in the jail, all of these things we would be asking them to do are already in there. There are already things that fall within their job description. We don't necessarily use them for that very often, but we're at a time when we are using them a lot now. When I go over to the jail, there's more times than not, it's a clerk that's running master control, because that frees up a deputy to actually the direct supervision of the pod. So they use them all the time. We're thinking that, well, it wasn't my idea. It was a sergeant or two in the jail brought this up. Lieutenant Stripling had brought the FSO idea up a few years ago, but at that time we didn't think we needed to do any changes. But now we're at a point. I don't know if you've seen any of the news articles that have gone out. What we've tried to do here to explain what's going on, but just last night, Jackson County, speaking with the Jackson County Sheriff, they're dealing with their own set of issues that aren't that dissimilar, just double the size. So they're working, and it's not just our 2 counties either. It's just about every jail in Oregon, maybe the nation, is dealing with this. Federal Bureau of Prisons. I just saw a 60-minute report on that. I think I've mentioned that before. So this is nothing new, but it's up to us to try and figure out how to fix it to the best of our ability. I will say that I think it may not be the only reason, but we have lost and are in danger of losing more employees because of the increase in the overtime to the point where it's becoming unmanageable. And the sooner we get something in the pipeline, I think the better off the entire county will be. Because looking down the road, we don't want to go back to 2010 when we only had one pod open in the jail. But that can't be taken off the table as an option when we run out of employees to man posts. Because the safety and security of the jail and the people that work there and the people that are housed there, that's primarily what we have to look at.
I'd like to also add that I think it would be beneficial as far as building a pool for future deputies, because we can hire a clerk at 18. They get in, see the experience, get the experience that normally they couldn't get until they're 21, see what the jail is all about, see what working with the patrol deputies and see all this. We start them at 21, they learn some of the basics. And then when they turn 21, they can apply to become a deputy and fill these slots. They're already working for us. I think it'd be a win for everybody.
Commissioner Hensley, I think in the beginning we weren't able to hear you. If you unmute, do you have any questions or thoughts?
Can everybody hear me okay now?
Oh, yep, we got you. Hello.
So there's a heck of an echo, so I apologize if I kind of stutter because I hear myself talking like 3 seconds behind, so I apologize. I've got a couple of concerns and I want to share those. First and foremost, I've heard for years and years that the sheriff's office needs more deputies. They need more deputies. They need more deputies. But now I'm hearing we can just have clerks do jobs that deputies are doing. So it makes me wonder if we've needed deputies all along, if this is such a good idea, number one. Number two, I'm concerned that these employees in this role won't have psychological evaluations done. And I'm reading an email that was published by our sheriff not too long ago that talks about working in the jail or correctional facility is the most difficult job in law enforcement from a mental health aspect. So I'm concerned that we're going to put people in these roles in a correctional facility that don't have psychological evaluations done. They haven't been to the police academy to understand employee and law enforcement wellness and how to seek help and treatment. So I'm concerned about the lack of training regarding being in that correctional facility and the mental health aspect to that. So I think those are the two things that come to my mind right up front. And then the last thing I'll add is I won't make a decision on this today because I want to reach out to somebody that I consider to be an expert in running a correctional facility, and I haven't had the opportunity to do that yet.
Thanks. Any questions?
Could I comment on that? The state wouldn't require a mental health eval, but that's certainly something that if we wanted to do and we feel is important, we can do that. It's just not required by the state for a clerk to have one, but we can certainly implement that if that's a concern. And yeah, we keep saying we need more deputies, but these are jobs that normally deputies would fill that a clerk could fill. And when we say we need more deputies, we're not just necessarily talking just for corrections. Patrol needs more deputies too. But you can't take a clerk over on patrol side and have them work patrol duties. Where in the jail, there are duties that a clerk could do. And they're not going to be in booking by themselves. They're not going to be dealing with inmates other than asking them questions for the booking process. So they would have a deputy there with them. It would just free up deputies from doing administrative type work to where they could do more deputy type duties.
With that, I would like to add an email that Sheriff Gaber sent out the month of May alone, for, I believe our current count is 16 deputies, it was over 900 hours of overtime. With these clerk positions, being able to eliminate that for the mental stresses that Commissioner Hensley mentioned on deputies also is another very positive, in my eyes at least.
Not to side note, you sound like your dad. I appreciate
I know.
that. But I digress. I would say, here's my two things. Number one, I'm open to reviewing and taking a look. I do have a couple of concerns. Really, the biggest would be we need to be absolutely doing psych evals. It's like, what are the criteria? What are the job? Just what is this job description? Is it different than the job description that we already have for a clerk in the jail? What are the duties that they are going to be performing? So Lieutenant, if you could get kind of like some kind of written out plan for how we're going to be doing this, that would really be helpful, I think, to the board, so that we can make as educated a decision as possible. I'll actually repeat something that Commissioner Hensley says. I'm not an expert in the jail or in policing at all. Zero. What I am actually decent at is budgeting. So I would say, yes, we would actually, and so it's important, and I'm only one, but I would just say from one commissioner, we would actually be making changes to the personnel spreadsheet and to the budget that would take a corrections deputy off of the personnel spreadsheet and put a clerk on. So we could always switch back someday, but it won't be we're just gonna, because we still have to budget for those. And I can't have somebody sitting on a personnel spreadsheet that's not budgeted for. And then I can't have a budget that doesn't balance because I don't have the money to budget it or to balance it. Does that make sense? So you couldn't just say, oh, we're not gonna hire them, but still have them on the books. The math won't math.
I told you to say that.
Yeah, the math won't math. Yeah, and
All you can do is ask, right?
Finance is looking at me going, no, math won't math. And they're right. So it would have to be, so understand that you would have deputies come off of your personnel spreadsheet and clerks go on. And we could talk about what those numbers look like. I have not seen the math on those and how many deputy positions you're willing to give up. And then we can take a look at what that means in terms of clerks coming back on and those types of things. So I will just say, I'm going to say one of you, maybe Commissioner Hensley, for the operations piece. I would like to just understand it better. So if you could get me something out, and then if I have questions, I can either reach out or I can reach out to other folks to try to get those questions answered. But I'm definitely going to be stepping up, saying I don't mind taking the lead if that's the direction that we want to go for the budgetary piece and how that spreadsheet will work.
Commissioner Hensley, you mentioned that there was sort of something you wanted to check into. So if we gave you like 2 weeks, would that make you more comfortable to at least have more information?
I think even a week, absolutely. I appreciate you doing that. And, I do just want to voice one more thing. I want to say on the record that I respect the men and women that are deputies working in the jail. I see how much overtime they're working, and that is atrocious. And I do feel bad. I do agree with Sheriff Caber that there has to be some type of change to alleviate that burden on those deputies. So I appreciate that people are trying to be creative and trying to find ways to continue to support our deputies. I think that's great. I'm on board. I just have some concerns about, are we setting ourselves up for failure, or are we shooting ourselves in the foot, or are we potentially harming future employees in the jail by going this route? So I just have some more questions I want to dig into, but I do think there has to be some type of change, and there has to be, I also noticed the sheriff in his email talked about letting the community know how hard the deputies are working, and I thought that was outstanding. I do agree with that. But I just don't feel comfortable today without really understanding more that mental health piece. And all of you know how important mental health was to me when I was the chief of police. And we had a very robust mental health program, or we called it our wellness program. And I just want to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up for failure in the future.
So I would just add, for my part, let's have another week so you can check into the things you wanted to check into.
In order for, us to have that week to answer the questions, we I think, how long would it take you to get us?
When do you want it?
It'll just impact how long it takes us to get back to you. How's that?
Well, we're not gonna do this today, is basically what I'm saying.
Right,
So-
but it's like setting a time certain
Timeline.
for a week from now, if we still had.
Yeah,
had the
I
time to
wasn't
review.
necessarily
Yeah.
truly setting the time certain for a week. I just wanted Commissioner Hensley to feel heard that he's got some time to look into what he wants to look into. I will say for me, when there is talk of potentially going back to one pod as in 2010, to me, we cannot get there. That is a failure on all of us because that fails the community. That was a terrible time. And so if we are to be creative to prevent that, I think that is a failure on all of us if we get to that point. So I am willing to look at sort of creative ways to juice the pipeline a little bit in order to prevent that. I also do appreciate your folks doing 900 hours of overtime. That's heavy.
I would like to address, Commissioner Hensley mentioned, do we need deputies or not? In my opinion, the best solution would be that we would have a higher list of qualified deputies that would fill the positions, and we would just go on like business as usual, because that would be ideal. I'm not suggesting that this is ideal. However, this is something that is within our grasp to get done sooner than later, and it can always be adjusted later on. It's going to take time to even hire clerks. So to get the ball rolling sooner than later would be great. I appreciate what Lieutenant Stripling said. I have found that the psychological evaluation process, which at one point in my career, I questioned whether it was even worthwhile. I no longer question that because I've seen the results of those examinations, and I believe them to be highly, highly accurate into the ability for people to work in that particular culture that the jail is. And so I am all for that. That wouldn't slow me down at all.
So it sounds like we have some next steps identified. Commissioner Hensley can look into the items he wants to look into. You're going to work on some numbers and kind of a straw man of a proposal. You want to work on the budget piece.
Yeah, I mean, I could do that. I think that's maybe following that, but really, just what does your plan look like?
Yep.
I need to have a better understanding of what they're going to be doing.
It's real simple.
Perfect.
Their
I like
job,
simple.
their current clerk job description. Master control and helping and booking. But I'll get some drafted. Thanks.
Okay.
And I've got the numbers here that you can plug into that.
Okay.
So if nothing else on that topic, I'll move us to the next one, which is still you.
It's still us?
Approve I am responding agreement. and
Okay.
authorize the sheriff. We have
Thank
it in
you.
front of us.
This was a last minute thing. I'll take responsibility for getting this before you before. What happened was a few months ago, our search and rescue units and other units use what was called, they called themselves mission manager, to notify volunteers of everything from training to actually SAR callouts and those sorts of things. It would also track their hours. A volunteer service that RISC would use also in their formulas for insurance and whatnot. And a few months ago, we were told in a pretty abrupt email that Mission Manager was no longer going to be operable. And they gave us the feeling like it was going to end that day, which it almost did. It stayed functional for a week or two. But that was our paging service, if you will, to page volunteers. So we have a volunteer that took over the responsibility of researching what our next move should be, and she located I Am Responding, which I believe the sheriff's office maybe years ago used, and many do. Probably many others. It's a company that provided us with, I think, a 60 or a 90-day free trial. So we jumped right into that. We jumped right into the free trial. It appears to be working fine. I think everybody has signed up that needs it. I've gotten messages on it. Well, now they want us to pay for the service because the time is up. And that's where I'll take responsibility for not getting this before you, before. I was told this morning that they would like to be paid tomorrow. So.
Finance just stood up straight.
So the best subscription, the one we think we should, and since it's a subscription that I have to sign for, you know, I spoke with, forgot who I spoke with, Sandy. Basically, she's allowed us to get this on the agenda really quickly. I haven't asked them for any kind of a extra time. If we can't get this done, they might go with that, but we just thought we'd bring it to you as quickly as we could once we realized we were up against the deadline. The 5-year plan is $1,500 one time. I think that's completely doable in our current budget, or I would have been told otherwise. So that's what we're asking for. Maybe you've had a chance to read it. I don't know if you have.
Just while we were actually having the last conversation.
It's a
'Cause
valuable,
this just came on, right?
it's a valuable tool. We need it or something like this. We used up the free trial and now they would like us to sign up for 5 years, which is what, $300 a year for hundreds of volunteers to be notified. I think it's a very viable
Looks
option.
like you have a question.
I don't really have a question. I'm just,
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad Ian's here. That was serendipity. Does this like connect with any of our other programs?
so-
Is this what you do too?
It does tie into that. We do have access to a program called Everbridge that we use for notifications and emergency alerts and warnings. It's paid for by the state. It's accessible. I'm the county administrator for that resource. I can create these different types of sign up things. It's free to use, and basically all I need is the contact information. I can create all the events myself, or I can look at somebody from the sheriff's office or SAR to set it up with their own internal management processes. That being said, it may not be the right solution. So if this solution is a better fit, then I think that as far as like the capabilities that they're looking for, and great, you know, I obviously support the sheriff's decision. But if we're looking for something that's free and we need now, I could do it right now. It's such a, if there's something, at least in the interim.
So it took us a couple weeks for the volunteer to get all of our volunteers signed up, all of them notified, all of them logged in. So we're up against it there, unless I am responding, gives us a waiver for more time, but that would probably be only if we agree to sign up with them, I would think. One of the other options is a $355 one-year subscription that we could just keep it going, and then we could talk about the Everbridge concept and just go with the one-year subscription, push it off a little bit. Costs us an extra $55 a year, but that's nothing.
Commissioner Hensley, your liaison actually to both of these departments. Do you have any preference or thoughts?
I think if the sheriff thinks this is the way to go, I'd respect that. But I also was wondering why we can't just use Everbridge, and are we just buying 2 systems now when we can just use Everbridge to do the exact same thing? So I was kind of leaning towards, is there a way to do a one-year subscription so we can, I know they want to get paid, I get it, and I think the county should never be the problem. So if we owe them money, let's do that. But is there a way for us to sit down and explore how Everbridge is the more permanent solution since we already own it? I just feel like this is another example of us getting siloed.
Okay, so it sounds like everyone's in support of the 1 year and then move to
That's
your
certainly an
partner.
option.
Is that good with
Yeah. Do we need a motion?
I'll move that we authorize the sheriff to sign off on a 1 year subscription to I Am Responding, and we'll work on Everbridge for the future.
Perfect.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion before we vote? All in favor signify with an eye.
All right.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Okay, and once again, I apologize for this being a last minute.
Got it. Okay, Ian, sorry,
Yeah.
CDD, Ian, do you just want to stay up and do your items?
Actually, I need to
Or
talk to
do you-
sheriff
okay,
about an
go for
event, and then I'll come back.
Okay, well then we'll bypass. Stephanie. Mattel,
Lost your place in line.
Come on, come on. ACOM
Clear that high.
Master Service Agreement.
Easiest way to sit in there.
Thank
It is one turn.
Yeah,
This is the old MSA master agreement with our consultant AECom. And they're running up against an end date. And they sent us several tasks, which this is one of them, to sign. Well, we signed one and it was 0001. Not that that matters, but included in there was a extension that we didn't even notice to June 30th. Well, I guess it really expired in May, but we didn't even notice that deal slid in there. So anyway, that's what we're here for, is we'd like to get this extended at least until July 30 or something like that, so we can use the remaining money. What you said, there's like 13,000 left in there, so.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the request to extend master service agreement between AECOM, AECOM,
Mhm.
Technical Services in Clement County, extending to July 31, 24, and authorize solid waste manager to sign both change orders.
Second, so we have a motion. Any other discussion or anything we need before we vote?
No.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Anything else for you guys?
we'll just be bringing a new master service agreement after July. This is just closing out our prior work that's been done, and so they can bill us everything.
Take that to the girls.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Always.
Thanks for the earlier, both of you, for the questions, because I was wondering about some of that myself.
Perfect.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Jeremy, come on up. Spence Mountain Rack Grant Match Request and
I'm
Don
very interested in this.
and Kirby.
And Kurt, what?
We get so much Kirby.
First of all,
today.
we need to ask
Okay.
for psych evals for the finance department. We don't have any idea the stress.
Especially the curb turn
Yeah.
after this
After
earlier
the-
meeting.
after the
at 1
raise.
o'clock.
The
Yeah.
most stressful part about that meeting was how long it was.
Try sitting up top.
So this is on our agenda as Spence Mountain Rack Grant Match Request, and it appears Jeremy is going to kick us off.
Yes.
Great, and June 4th, we came before the board at an admin meeting. There was a grant opportunity that there was a call for projects. And so at that time, we talked to the board about spending time applying for it to make sure that this aligned with the board's objectives out of Spence Mountain. So we've prepared the application. Don has worked really hard on that, and along with Drew at KTA. And we have a draft application before you. And in the big picture, the application doesn't require any grants or any match. We've heard through the grapevine that to be competitive, that we should bring in about a 20% match. And so what we're asking for is a $10,000 match from the county. That isn't all of the 20%. ODF is actually has some in-kind dollars that they're, or in-kind service that they're bringing to the table. $6,000 of to help with forest thinning, and then Climate Trails Alliance has an in-kind match of about $10,000 for trail maintenance, decommissioning some roads up there. So
I'll make for a strong applications with all those different entities.
It's gonna be extremely competitive, but yeah, so. And it's been a moving target because even their own application guidelines in the same paragraph says no match is required, but a match might be required. So I emailed them today and asked them, and they said, we don't really know, we're figuring it out. So to be
Okay.
safe and be competitive, you know, we realized originally we didn't think there'd be, but, and it's a very collaborative effort, you're right. So it does provide a very strong, and we'll also just say to offset that, while we can't use it for a match, since we met with you last time, we also discovered there's a 12.5% indirect cost recapture we can do. So the county would see about almost 18 grand in administrative costs from this grant. So, so it's a win for everybody.
Yeah,
I'm
it
gonna
might, oh, good, do.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the request to submit the RAC grant application, fiscal impact $176,000 $875 to the Commissioners Miscellaneous Grant Fund.
I'll second, and I'll just say for comment, it's our property and we need to take care of it.
Word.
So, any other discussion?
Word. Yo, church.
All in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Chair.
Aye.
votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have staff stamp you, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Is
Jeremy.
there a signature needed
No,
on
it's
this?
like nothing, just I sent it
Okay.
as an email.
Sounds good. I didn't know if the
Since you and I talked,
motion would require a liaison approvals. Sounds like there's no signature.
since you and I talked about the maps too.
Okay, we have a couple items under the board and we skipped
you.
over Ian, but he's in the
He'll come
hallway,
back.
so if Haley, if you have, come on up.
I was hoping you could squeeze me in.
Of course.
So I just need your official approval to release staff at 4 PM on July 31st to attend the staff carnival at the fairgrounds.
Yes,
I'm assuming that we would do some type of release that offices would be closed at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, so I have a memo there just for you to sign, and then I will send that out to department heads with a little flyer about the carnival.
And do a press release.
We'll put it up on the, we'll do our news flash.
Move to approve.
second,
Chair, can I jump in real quick?
sure.
I am so sorry. I got kicked off of Zoom and I logged right back in at the motion. Can you tell me where we are on the agenda again? I'm sorry.
Yes, we're at the, a staff early release at 4 o'clock on July 31st for the summer appreciation.
Perfect. Thank you. That's a great idea, Haley.
So by consensus, we support and we'll sign off on this. Why a news release?
Offices are
Oh, for the
closed.
offices being
Yeah,
closed. Okay,
yeah, office closure.
Yeah.
Right, so,
gotcha.
Yeah, and language, you're okay with just staff appreciation event in the news flash?
yeah.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, I'll make it in a motion.
All right, good.
You did? Did
And
I
you
second it?
seconded it.
Okay. All in-
Things are happening quick
all in
around here,
favor
Mish.
Signify with an aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes.
Awesome, thank you. You don't need me for the present.
I don't think so.
letter, right?
No.
Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the next one on the agenda is a request to the board chair of the South Suburban Sanitary District, requesting that they make a trip. And we've had this discussion ahead of time to go up with their staff. In fact, they're also going to take their contract engineer and others up to do a full assessment of the end evaluation of the Crescent Sanitary District to include infrastructure, their financials, operations, and the whole bit. I mentioned it in commissioner reports at our last meeting. That's a huge kudos. They're stepping up to do that, and I really appreciate it. Not just their board who already approved it based on our request, but also their staff. Like, actually, we should take this and we should take that and we should take, so they could really get a grasp of how things are operating up there. Separately, I've had a conversation with our engineers that we employ, and they may have some insight as well. So I'm sure we'll be having a conversation with them about, and Jeremy's in the room, taking a look at that kind of stuff. He knows a little bit about this type of work as well. Have you ever designed a sanitary district?
I have.
I know.
City of Tule Lake.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
I would make
consensus, or you can do it.
I'll make a motion that we sign the letter requesting South Suburban Sanitary District do the evaluation of Crescent Sanitary District.
Second. We have a motion for consideration to sign off on the Crescent Sanitary District related letter. Any other discussion?
I don't have any. Thank you, Chair. I think this is great. I'm all in support of this.
Okay, let's vote. All in favor signify with an aye.
Sorry, aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. And then finally, on our agenda, emergency management, come on up. Title III policy review discussion.
Sorry, it's been kind of hectic.
It's great.
So this is Ian Thigpen, Klamath County Emergency Manager. And basically, we've been working on this Title III problem set for a long time now. The front end of the matter is that the federal guidelines for how to use this money, as you know, is very convoluted, complicated, murky, and we felt like the boundary lines on what how we could approach spending this money appropriately kind of put us into kind of a situation financially, legally. So we needed some sort of like narrowing guidelines on how to approach this from an advisory committee perspective, so that we feel more confident that if an audit comes, we can stand before the audit and you know, not have any real significant concerns. In the process, we've identified that a lot of the conversation around how to use Title III funds has been focused on purchasing new equipment or reimbursement for lost equipment and things of this nature. But in this process, we've discovered that although that is an option that you can use the money for, really the money is intended for community wildfire protection plan development and execution, and Firewise community plan development and execution. With those, there's basically no guardrails. But when we get into basically response on federal service lands, reimbursement for those responses, equipment losses, and purchasing of new equipment, that's, even though it is part of it, so we did need some tighter guidelines. The two big aspects of that is the rules for proportionality and for reimbursement. And those two things combined created a really difficult thing to understand. So we've spent the past several months, and this is the 7th iteration of this policy draft, trying to create these guardrails for our advisory committee. And we just wanted to kind of unpack this and bring it to your review for our final kind of like once over, and then maybe have Marcus County Council take a look at it with a fine-tooth comb, make sure it looks good, and then bring it to a business meeting for signature.
Yeah, I think you laid out the process exactly. Like, I'd like to take it and independently digest it, and we can all offer feedback, and then, yeah, let's have council look at it. And I applaud. It sounds like very hard work of the committee to really keep, you're right. This has been a long-standing, difficult issue to navigate. It sounds like you guys really spent some time.
Yeah, I think there's still definitely edge cases where it's going to be difficult to navigate, but there's a kind of a flow chart on towards the back that kind of makes kind of explains the process at the macro level. And one of the things that we've tried to include in this is kind of an outlier option for non-traditional situations, is having a county fund to assist our fire departments or other response organizations that do respond on the federal Forest Service land, that we can assist them in the purchasing of equipment, and then the county fund would be reimbursed by helping them achieve that proportional match. So there's a proportional match kind of like explanation on the back as well. Mm-hmm. And then the creation of a county fund to basically create an equitable option where we can provide that support. There's still a lot of questions about where the money for that county fund would be. We think that we might be able to use some Oregon Community Foundation grant dollars to meet that, because it's not, that funding doesn't come from the federal government. And but I think we would only be able to put like somewhere between $50,000 and $70,000. That's not enough to buy a Type 3 piece of equipment or something like that.
Right.
So,
yeah, I did take a look at it. I'm sure Commissioner Hensley's going to have some thoughts as well. But thank you to you and the committee. There's a lot of work here. I was reading through this. This is a lot of work. We've been working on Title III for a long time, and I know how complicated it is. So good job and thank you. And I would be really interested. Maybe we can also work with the grants department and see if we can't try to identify some things to build that county fund. Maybe there's some applications or some grants out there that would help us do that. Because it would be really neat to have a fund sitting there that if a department were to lose a big piece of apparatus, that we would have some type of way to facilitate or help facilitate them getting a new piece of equipment as soon as possible so that there wasn't a lapse in coverage for the community. So I think that's a great idea.
Okay,
All right.
anything else?
No, just,
That's really good.
I think county council needs,
Yeah.
our lawyer needs to actually look at that option.
That guy.
Excellent.
Fastest way to
Well, are you gonna send it along to him or did you want us to send
I
it?
think it would be helpful to have the commissioner send it because he technically kind of works.
Sure. And I know, I believe Commissioner Hensley, I think you have Title III under your
Yeah.
liaison, so you'll work with Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thank you, Ian, as well for this work. You know, I don't know how many times I've read that policy now since that's the seventh version of it, but I really do appreciate the committee taking the time to put some fences around that yard to protect the commissioners. Because at the end of the day, when we as commissioners make a decision to fund a project, that liability comes back to the county. And the committee, in my opinion, has done a really nice job of thinking about all of the ways that we might get burned spending that money. And they spent a lot of time developing those policies. So I'm ready to send it to Mr. Henderson and get that thing inked up and get to work and start spending some money out of there. So thanks, Ian. I appreciate it.
Sounds good. All right. So if there's nothing else, I will adjourn. I'll adjourn us at 3:53.